Welcome back, this is Sandy with Sandy's Organized Chaos, and today we're going to be doing this abstract beach look. As always, I'll make sure to put everything I use today into the description box below so that way you guys can shop those items if you would like to. If you're new to my channel, don't forget to hit that subscribe button, and let's wake up, prep these tumblers, and slay all day. Let's do this. The tumbler that I'm using today is a big old 30-ounce skinny tumbler from Mother Tumbler. I went ahead and prepped and primed it in this rustic pink by Rust-Oleum. Now I'm just doing one coat of glitter on the very bottom, so we don't need to worry about doing any type of ombres or anything like that. So I'm just going to use plain old Mod Podge to adhere that glitter down today. And the glitter I'm using is called Agenda. Now this glitter here is semi-translucent and it does have a bit of a shift to it, and the shift is more in gold tones. So the reason why I chose to paint the base in this rustic pink was to really catch that undertone of the golds, and I really like the way this looks for the sand portion of my beach. So I'm just going to fully load that tumbler up with that glitter. I'm going to set it off to the side to dry, and we're ready to move on to the next step. So after that dried, I swept it off really good, getting all those loose glitters off that just adhere to the glue, and then I will apply 30 milliliters of epoxy over top. I'll get that placed onto my turner, hit it up really good with my torch to pop any little micro bubbles, and then I will let that spin and cure before we move on to the next step. And once it is cured, we're ready to do one of my favorite parts, is adding that abstract look to it. I've done this technique a few different times, but I have to say this is probably my most favorite way that I've done it. I really like the incorporation of the chaotic look of the waves and with the straight lines of the abstract shapes. Now, of course, you can use any size tape you would like, small tape, big tape, however you want to do it, but my favorite size is this 1-inch size painter's tape. Now, for the very first line, I always like to take one big piece and do just one kind of baseline coming off of it, and then we can kind of anchor the other pieces of tape coming off of this one. And with this one in particular, I decided to go ahead and continue that baseline all the way up onto the bottom and connecting it over to the other side. So I'll just take another piece of tape and I'll just extend that motion of the tape I had flipped over onto the bottom and continue that around to the front. Now, the great thing about this is I just kind of let the tape do its own thing. So it wanted to go in this direction, so I continued it on in this direction. But this is where the abstract part comes in, because it doesn't really matter how you do this. You just kind of want to layer your tape on and just have fun with it and just kind of let it speak to you as to how much you want to add, especially with these bigger ones. I added a little bit more than usual, and I kept a few of these boxes or these shapes a bit bigger than usual. But if you're dealing with a smaller tumbler, you might need to kind of gauge down maybe even the width of the tape that you're using, just so that way you can get as many shapes as you can into it. And like I just showed you there, the only thing you want to really make sure that you do is not have any weird ending pieces. So you don't want those pieces of tape coming off to the one side without an extension of the tape continuing onto it. You'd want it to end inside of the tape, because this is pretty much masking off our beach look area. And anything on the inside will be painted blue and glittered blue to represent the water portion. But again, it's just completely free-flowing. However big you feel like your shape should be is exactly how it should be. I know you guys got this. This is super simple and such a beautiful technique to do over top of just a solid glittered tumbler. So now you just want to make sure that your tape edges are firmly pressed down. We're going to spray paint it in a blue color. We're going to go ahead and let that dry, and then when we come back in, we are going to go ahead and get our blue glitter applied. You don't want to remove your tape yet, because we still got to apply that glitter. And again, I'm just going to go ahead and use Mod Podge to adhere the glitter down. And you can layer up different blues in here if you'd like to. I'm just going to use one blue. I'm just going to keep it very simple. So this glitter here is called Ice. And again, you can purchase all the glitters I'm using today from socglitters.com if you would like to. And as soon as I was done glittering, I moved right into removing the tape. And once I removed the tape, I'm just going to give it a once over. And the only thing I noticed was some glue kind of seeped up underneath the tape. I'm not worried about that because that will dry clear once this is all said and done. So I'll set that off to the side, let that dry, and then we're ready to move on to the next step. So of course we need another coat of epoxy over top before we move on to the wave portion. And I swept it off really good once it was dry to remove any loose glitters that didn't adhere to the glue. I gave it a couple spritzes of my semi-gloss clear to seal down all those glitters so they didn't shift on me. I'm going to do the glove test, making sure nothing's going to shift because we don't want that. That'd be no good. We don't want those glitters moving around on us. Then I will go ahead and coat it again in about 20 mLs of epoxy. And of course, every coat of epoxy, you hit it up really good with your torch. You let that spin and cure before you move on to that next step. We're back, it has cured, and now I wanted to add some pinstriping around the outside of each shape. So I'm just going to take this finishing tape or nail tape and this gold chrome, and I'm going to outline each one of my shapes. Once I have all my nail tape applied, I am going to go ahead and seal down this nail tape because sometimes this nail tape doesn't want to cooperate and likes to lift once I put the epoxy on, and we don't want that. So I'm going to go ahead and either use a spray sealer or I will use my liquid sealer to get those edges sealed down. Once my sealer has dried, we're going to go ahead and move right into building our waves using none other than, you guessed it, Aliens Glitter Snow. So it's been a little bit since I've used this, so I'm just going to take a popsicle stick and stir it up really good, just making sure it's nicely incorporated and there's no rough spots in it from sitting for a while. Taking a decently sized dollop of the glitter snow, you want to treat each shape as an individual area for your wave. So you just want to take one particular shape and you just want to focus on that one shape and just kind of let those waves speak for itself as you start to build them. So how I imagine these waves coming outside of each shape is if you've ever gone to a lake or a beach and you've seen groupings of rocks along the shoreline and you see the waves kind of coming up through the rocks. That's how I'm trying to imagine these waves breaking onto this tumbler. So that's how I'm going to treat each individual shape as almost like they're coming up in between the shoreline and just kind of landing outside of the area that we have dedicated for the water. So don't be afraid to dabble it outside of its dedicated area because that's the whole point of this look. It's supposed to look like it's jumping out of that shape and landing other places it really shouldn't be. So this stuff dries relatively fast. So each one of these, you want to make sure that you work pretty quick with it because what I like to do to finish off each one of these little waves is I come through and I just very gently pull back a little bit of that snow, that fake snow, and it will give that illusion of that kind of milky, frothy look behind the breaking of the wave. But you just want to pull that straight back, and again, that will give that illusion of the wave. So the whole structure of these waves is a little bit more different than how I typically do my beach waves because it's not as organized or as structured as I typically do. I usually do like a C shape and they all kind of connect together, but these kind of have a life of their own. So you just kind of want to go with the flow of your shape, and just as you see here, I'm just kind of outlining each little corner here and just letting those waves kind of speak to me as I go. So some of these shapes are going to have a lot of waves inside of them. So I'll come through and I'll do like a circular motion with the waves on the inside. And some of them only have a few little waves off to each corner. So again, each one is completely different and has a mind of their own. So this is a little bit of a process because before I move on to each little section, I want the waves beforehand to dry a little bit on me so that way I don't accidentally smudge them. So you just want to make sure that they're as dry as they can be before you move on to your next set of waves. And another thing I kept in mind as I was doing my waves is I did want to add a quote, and I wanted to add a quote inside of one of these shapes. So you just want to make sure you dedicate a particular shape to your quote if you want to do it in this manner, or you go ahead and add your waves completely around, add another coat of epoxy, and then put your quote over top. Either way is completely up to you. And once my waves are complete, I'm going to go ahead and set that off to the side and let those finish drying before I add my quote. And the quote is extremely simple. I just used 2 different fonts, which I will put down into the description box for you guys what I used. I went ahead and typed up the word saltwater in this really pretty fancy font, and then I just typed up the words heals everything in more of a straight lined look, and just cut that in a gold and a white vinyl. And then I will go ahead and place that down in the dedicated area for it. I'll make sure that it's nicely burnished down, and all that is left to do is add its last few finishing coats of epoxy, and she is ready to go. Whether you take this design and duplicate it as is, or you take it and let it inspire you to create something that is completely your own, I hope that you guys had a lot of fun watching this tutorial today. Again, if you're new to my channel, don't forget to hit that subscribe button, and I will see you guys next time.